The year is 2009. You come home from school, kick off your Osiris skate shoes or knee-high Converses, head to the computer room, and boot up the family computer. After being greeted by the serene sound of the Windows Vista startup screen, you open Internet Explorer and type in youtube.com to search for Sasunaru AMVs. But something else in your recommendations catches your eye. Something called Nightcore. The thumbnail, a winking anime girl wearing headphones, seemingly pointing at you, beckoning. You click on it, and soon the squeaky vocals and rapidly pounding bass are filling your ears. Life is good. If any of that caused you to be overcome with nostalgia, it might be time to get your prostate checked. I'm just kidding, pushing 30 is still young. Right, guys? Please say yes. If you were chronically online before the term chronically online was even invented, then I'm sure you've at least heard of Nightcore, the genre of music remixes that dominated YouTube in the late 2000s and early 2010s, in which popular songs were sped up to heart attack-inducing BPMs, giving the vocals a distinctive Alvin and the Chipmunks-esque quality, and paired with images of moe-style anime girls. But Nightcore didn't just fall out of a coconut tree in 2005 when YouTube came online. So where did it come from? How did it get so popular? Why was it associated with anime? And how is it related to the sped-up versions of songs that are all over TikTok right now? All of these questions and more will be answered in this video. First, we need to talk about the context in which Nightcore lived and all that came before it. And to do that, we have to go all the way back to the birth of electronic music in the mid-20th century. Electronic instruments like synthesizers and drum machines were developed in the 60s and 70s and eventually found widespread usage in genres like disco and synthpop in the late 70s and into the 80s. These genres were among the precursors to electronic dance music, or EDM, an umbrella term used to refer to various types of music meant to be danced to at clubs, raves, and festivals that emerged during the late 80s and early 90s. We're going to be focusing on 3 specific genres of EDM that are each related to Nightcore in some way. The first of these is happy hardcore. Happy hardcore is actually a subgenre of hardcore, sometimes known as hardcore techno, a genre that emerged from the European rave scene in the early 90s. Drawing inspiration in part from harder genres like industrial and hardcore punk, hardcore is characterized by tempos exceeding 160 BPM, aggressive, distorted kicks, and often dark or violent themes. Happy hardcore split off towards the mid-90s, keeping the fast tempos and hard kicks, but bringing in uplifting vocals and piano melodies. If you're familiar with Searle of Pretty Rave Girl and Pika Girl fame, that's happy hardcore. It was a common practice for happy hardcore DJs in the 90s to play standard 12-inch vinyl records at 45 RPM, the speed meant for smaller 7-inch records, speeding the music up by about 35% and raising the pitch. Trance is another EDM genre that arose from the early 90s European rave scene. Named thus because of the hypnotic, trance-like state it was meant to induce, it featured atmospheric synths, long build-ups, and drops. When you think of stereotypical rave music, you're probably thinking of trance. Initially purely instrumental, vocals began to be incorporated more often as the genre progressed. And subgenres like uplifting trance and progressive trance, with their more commercially accessible sound, found some mainstream success in the mid to late 90s. You might be familiar with tracks like Children by Robert Miles, Castles in the Sky by Ian Van Dahl, or Adagio for Strings by Tiesto, all of which were commercially successful trance songs in the late 90s or early 2000s. Lastly, we have Eurodance, the EDM genre that I'm sure nearly all of you are familiar with, even if you don't realize it. In fact, if you've seen my Jamster Ringtones video, I know for a fact you're familiar with Eurodance. Crazy Frog is listed as a Eurodance artist on Wikipedia. Eurodance began in the late 80s and found mainstream success in the 90s. With its roots in European disco, it also draws influence from hip-hop, house, techno, trance, and pop. Though the artists were often from non-English speaking countries, most Eurodance songs featured vocals sung in English with simple lyrics typically revolving around romance or partying. It was probably one of the most commercially successful EDM genres in the 90s and 2000s, not just in its native Europe, but over here in North America too. When I was growing up, there was at least one Eurodance song played at every sporting event and school dance. What is Love, Cotton Eye Joe, Barbie Girl, Better Off Alone, Blue Dabba-Dee, We Like to Party, All the Things She Said, Dragostea Dinte, aka the Numa Numa song, Carmel Donson, Stereo Love, various songs by Cascada and Bass Hunter, the list goes on. The popularity of this genre may have been driven in part by the internet, as many of these songs found homes on the burgeoning social media of the 2000s, particularly here on YouTube, where some of them became viral memes. My fellow Flipnote Hatena emigres may remember that several of these songs went triple platinum on there. By the 2010s, Eurodance had started influencing mainstream North American pop acts like Rihanna, Britney Spears, Lady Gaga, and Katy Perry. If you somehow don't remember any of the songs I just listed, you might recall Planet of the Bass, a song released in 2023 by comedian Kyle Gordon that was meant to be a parody of 90s and 2000s Eurodance songs and ended up going massively viral on TikTok. He was so right. Women are my favorite guy. The influences that these three genres had on the development of Nightcore will become clear when I explain where exactly Nightcore originated from. To do that, we must travel to Norway in the year 2002. Two high school students, Thomas S. Nilsson, aka DJ TNT, and Stefan Ohala Soderholm, aka DJ SOS, had been given an assignment for one of their classes to create a song. They ended up creating an entire album called Energized under the name Nightcore because they were, quote, the core of the night, so you'll dance all night long. Inspired by happy hardcore, particularly the German group Scooter, whose songs featured pitched-up vocals, the album consisted of remixed versions of trance and Eurodance songs that had been sped up and pitch-shifted using a music arrangement program called Dance EJ3. Their aim was to make these songs sound happier, more upbeat, and pleasurable to listen to. They released 4 more albums under the Nightcore name over the next couple of years before abandoning the project and moving on with their lives. Years later, the duo decided to search the name of their old project online just for the heck of it, and were surprised to find that several of their songs had been uploaded to LimeWire and YouTube. They had never uploaded their music anywhere online themselves, having only distributed a few homemade CDs to family, friends, and local DJs in their hometown. And apparently to this day, they still have no idea how they found their way onto the internet. Most of their music is lost media nowadays, but a few songs have survived to this day. Most notably, Dom Dottie Doo, the song most commonly associated with the iconic pointing anime girl, who you can maybe sort of see behind me, who is the character Ichinose Kyo from the hentai visual novel Imitation Lover, by the way, in case you were curious. In their search, they also noticed a few songs attributed to Nightcore that they had not made. A YouTube user known as Michael631 noticed this too. He was one of the first people to begin uploading the original Nightcore tracks onto YouTube from LimeWire in the late 2000s. One day he found a new Nightcore song, but soon realized it didn't come from the Norwegian duo. It was then that he discovered that songs in the Nightcore style could very easily be made by anyone by simply increasing the speed and pitch of a pre-existing song using a basic free audio software like Audacity. At this point, he started creating and posting his own Nightcore remixes, as did several other people, and the scene began to grow. He continued to do so well into the 2010s, although his channel hasn't seen any new uploads since early 2019. He also founded a Nightcore-themed forum called Nightcore Universe, which is still active in 2026. The music of the late 2000s Nightcore scene on YouTube tried to remain true to the concept originally pioneered by our Norwegian friends, mainly trance and Eurodance songs sped up 25 to 30%, resulting in a BPM of around 160 to 180 and raising the pitch by about 5.5 semitones, and accompanied by a picture of an anime girl. Except that last part wasn't pioneered by the original duo. The covers of their albums contain 0 anime girls. So how did Nightcore come to be associated with anime? There doesn't seem to be any definitive answer for this that I could find, so I think it's probably a combination of things. One factor might have been the popularity of anime music videos, or AMVs, on YouTube in the late 2000s. These were fan-made edits of clips from an anime or video game set to music. They might focus on a particular series, character, or ship, or contain clips from a variety of anime. AMVs were a significant component of online anime fandom in the 2000s, and many anime conventions even had AMV competitions. Eurodance songs were a popular choice of music to accompany AMVs, and it wasn't long before the Nightcore versions of these songs started appearing in them. For example, this Final Fantasy and this Kingdom Hearts AMV both use Dom Dottie Doo. This Magical Girl AMV uses a Nightcore edit of the Eurodance song Castle in the Sky by DJ Satomi, and this Naruto AMV uses a Nightcore edit of the happy hardcore song Field of Dreams by Force and Styles. The anime association may have also come about due to the game Osu. a freeware rhythm game for PCs and phones originally released in 2007. While developed by an Australian dude, it was based on the Japanese game Osu Tatake Oendan, localized as Elite Beat Agents in the West for the Nintendo DS. Osu has become heavily associated with anime and Japanese pop culture, and is kind of known as being a game played largely by weebs, in brackets, affectionate. Most of the songs and beat maps that can be played in the game are user-generated, and a lot of it is anime music. In 2011, a Nightcore version of the song Rockefeller Street by Estonian singer Geter Jani became extremely popular on YouTube, to the point where it eclipsed the popularity of the original song. This Nightcore remix was created and uploaded by a notable Osu player named Andrea, who paired the song with an image of two anime cat or wolf girls from a doujinshi art book called Fuyanagi by the artist collective Ice Tochoko. Andrea then submitted a beat map of the Rockefeller Street Nightcore remix to Osu, which kicked off a wave of other Nightcore songs becoming available to play. Another contributing factor could be the virality of the song Caramel Dansen. Initially released by the Swedish Eurodance group Caramel in 2001, it didn't come to notoriety until 2005 when a sped-up version of it was posted to 4chan by a DJ known as Speedy Cake. Supposedly, he had sped up the song by accident while playing a set, but found that people liked it, unintentionally reinventing Nightcore from first principles years before it would become popular online. Later in the year, a different 4chan user paired DJ Speedy Cake's version of the song with an animation loop from the visual novel Popotan of two characters doing the now iconic Caramel Dansen dance. And from there, a meme was born. Animations of other characters doing the dance flooded YouTube and Japanese video sharing site Nico Nico Douga. Similar to the Nightcore version of Rockefeller Street, the sped-up version of Caramel Dansen became more famous than the original song. Caramel had disbanded shortly after Caramel Dansen was first released, and thus weren't capitalizing on its newfound popularity. So Japanese music distributor Exit Tunes saw an opportunity. They purchased the rights to Caramel Dansen and re-released the sped-up version of it in 2008, calling it the Speedy Mix. They also created a virtual band of 3 anime-style girls to promote it, called the Caramella Girls, and an animated music video in which they performed the famous dance that has accumulated well over 100 million views across the various versions of it that have been uploaded to YouTube. While the re-released version of the song wasn't called a Nightcore remix, it is essentially the same thing, and it kind of got lumped in with Nightcore. I think it might also be the first instance of a song receiving an official sped-up remix, something we're going to talk about more in a bit. The rise of Nightcore also coincided with the rise of Vocaloid following the release of Hatsune Miku in 2007. Something I noticed when looking at old Nightcore videos while researching was that the anime girl featured in the thumbnail was usually either from some obscure hentai visual novel or Hatsune Miku. This does make a certain amount of sense given Miku's obvious association with music. Miku's vocals are also much higher pitched than the average human being, lending many of the songs featuring her a sort of Nightcore-y vibe, so I imagine there was a lot of overlap between Vocaloid fans and people who liked Nightcore. And lastly, it could just be that anime was rapidly becoming more popular in the 2000s, especially online. The internet made watching anime a lot more accessible thanks to things like fan subbing and P2P file sharing and video sharing websites. Shout out to watching episodes of anime in 4 parts on YouTube, allowing people to watch series that hadn't yet been released outside of Japan. It also provided a place for fans of anime to find each other and congregate to discuss their favorite series. Anime is inextricably linked to 2000s internet culture in my opinion, so it makes sense to me that it would become associated with something else that's extremely online like Nightcore. Moving along in our historical timeline, the 2010s marked a bit of a shift for Nightcore. Enough Nightcore songs had gone viral that it wasn't just EDM fans and weeaboos that knew about it anymore. People started making Nightcore remixes of songs from genres other than the usual trance, Eurodance, and happy hardcore. One of the earliest known examples of this is a Nightcore version of the song Missing by Evanescence, uploaded by the user Rini in 2011. Evanescence are a nu metal band, not EDM, favored more by emo kids than ravers, and Missing, despite being Nightcore, is still a very slow and sad song. Quite different from most Nightcore up till that point. Still a banger though. Some OG Nightcore fans saw this as blasphemous and thought it wasn't real Nightcore, which I think really legitimizes Nightcore as a musical genre, because if you look into the history of any genre, the early pioneers always say this shit when people try to innovate. Despite being written off by Nightcore purists, non-dance Nightcore songs continued popping up all over YouTube. some of which have become classics right up there with Dom Dotty Doo and Every Time We Touch. The missing video has over 6 million views, and a Nightcore version of another rock song, Angel with a Shotgun by The Cab, uploaded in 2012 by Cut Love RX, has 270 million views, and I think might actually be the most viewed Nightcore video currently on YouTube. Pretty soon, just about any and every slightly popular song was getting a Nightcore remix regardless of genre. My personal favorite is the Nightcore version of Trap Queen. It was common to see people in the comments of Nightcore videos musing about how so many songs just sounded better sped up for some reason. But as with so many things, it maybe got a little oversaturated, which is when its reputation started to decline. The term Nightcore had become a shorthand for song but faster, as opposed to the name of a distinct genre or style of music. As it became more popular, it sort of broke containment from its fan base of internet weirdos, and a lot of normies, for lack of a better word, didn't really get it. They thought it was weird or annoying or a lazy, low-effort way of making music, not worthy of being taken seriously. I've spoken about the rise of cringe culture in the 2010s in several of my videos, and in the wake of this, anything that was a remnant of trends or pop culture from the 2000s came to be seen as cringe or gauche, including Nightcore. This, along with YouTube's increasingly strict copyright detection system that made it difficult to upload videos containing copyrighted music, even if it was sped up, led the Nightcore scene to fall off significantly in the latter half of the decade. This didn't stop Nightcore from making a lasting impact, however. While many online were decrying it, the wider music industry was taking notes. In the late 2010s, Nightcore was acknowledged by big-name producers and DJs like Jemba Jemba, Nina Las Vegas, Ryan Hemsworth, and Lido. It also caught the attention of A.G. Cook and Danny L. Harl, founding members of the influential experimental pop music label PC Music that rose to prominence in the second half of the 2010s. In an interview with the New York Times, Harl called Nightcore a revelatory discovery in his early life and musical development. The artists associated with PC Music pioneered a sound that would come to be known as hyperpop, an exaggerated and maximalist take on pop music that incorporates elements of EDM. The influences of Nightcore can definitely be felt in the early hyperpop scene. The music was fast, upbeat, energetic, and danceable. Pitched-up vocals were staples of the early work of hyperpop artists like Sophie, A.G. Cook, Cutie, 100 gecs, Jane Ruver, Osquin, and Kamo. The genre also frequently referenced 2000s internet culture and its sound, lyrics, and aesthetics. In the 2020s, the hyperpop sound in turn started to influence mainstream pop music, with artists like Charli XCX, Camila Cabello, Kim Petras, and Pink Pantheress drawing inspiration from it and gaining widespread recognition. So basically what I'm saying is, if we didn't have Nightcore, we never would have had Brat Summer. Hyperpop itself went on to spawn several microgenres in which elements of Nightcore can also be seen. Digicore moved away from the more happy, poppy sounds of PC music artists and went in a more 100 gecs direction, taking more inspiration from hip-hop, particularly artists like Blade, and utilizing heavy auto-tune, chaotic layered beats, high-pitched vocals, and sharp 808s. The result is often even more abrasive and experimental than regular hyperpop. Glitchcore is a very similar genre label, sometimes used interchangeably with Digicore, that is used to describe artists who focus especially on visual and audio distortion in their work. Prominent artists in these scenes include Jane Remover, Osquin, Kamo, Black Winter Wells, Glaive, and Dollywood One. There's also Dariacore, the microgenre pioneered by Jane Remover when she released an album entitled Dariacore in 2021 under the alias Leroy. Featuring a screenshot from the 90s animated TV series Daria as the album cover, the music consisted of mashups of samples of everything from Vanessa Carlton to Porter Robinson to a video of Anthony Fantano reacting to one of Jane Remover's own songs, with humorous track names like Copyright Strike My Fucking Nuts and Go White NB Go. The samples were frequently pitch-shifted and sped up. It also drew inspiration from things like Jersey Club, dubstep, and drum and bass. The album was well received, and Jane released 3 more albums under the Leroy moniker in the same style. Other artists began emulating the sound, but it fell off a bit towards the mid-2020s after Jane officially retired the Leroy project. Interestingly, Dariacore has gotten really big in Japan over the last few years, though it's more commonly known now as Hyperflip. And Jane actually revived the Leroy SoundCloud account last year and has been uploading new tracks semi-regularly, so new Dariacore album coming soon, perhaps? Did I make this video just so I would have an excuse to talk about Jane Remover? I'll never tell. Moving further into the hip-hop side of things, Nightcore's influence can be felt in subgenres like Hexed and Rage. Rage is sort of like hyperpop meets trap. Similar to hyperpop, it takes a lot of inspiration from EDM, and there's often a lot of crossover with digicore, with a similar prevalence of high-pitched auto-tuned vocals, heavy 808s, and aggressive production. One of the first and most influential Rage albums was Playboi Carti's Whole Lotta Red in 2020. It could even be argued that Carti's signature baby voice was influenced by Nightcore. Rage became more extreme and experimental over time, and has more or less become the definitive sound of underground hip-hop. Notable artists making Rage music include Netspend, Yeet, Che, Lil Uzi Vert, Lucy Bedrock, Osama Sun, and Slayer. Hex music takes an even more direct influence from Nightcore. It consists of hip-hop songs that are sped up, pitched up, and bit crushed, an effect that makes the music sound like it was recorded with and played out of a Nintendo DSi. The Hex scene was born in 2019 when an album called Rare RCB Hexed.mp3 was uploaded to the YouTube channel of net label Dismiss Yourself, attributed to Tomoe_The Undying. People were intrigued by this mysterious album, and it was eventually discovered to be remixes of songs by the rap collective Reptilian Club Boys, created by Stacey Minaj, member of a collective known as Hexcast Crew. Someone in the comments aptly described it as when they start putting Carti songs on Chinese bootleg toys. Dismiss Yourself continued to release albums and mixes in a similar style, and the popularity of Hexed grew. Some hip-hop musicians applied Hexed principles to their original music, adding pitch shifting and bit crushing effects to their songs, and again, there is some crossover with Rage and digicore here. Artists making music in this style include Yabujin, Susie Sista, Lucia, and High C. The visual aesthetics of Hexed are also highly reminiscent of Nightcore. The Rare RCB Hex.mp3 album cover features a moe-style anime girl, bringing to mind the Nightcore videos of yore. This came to define the genre's visual style, with anime, video games, and old internet aesthetics featuring heavily, often purposely low resolution or glitchy looking. The musical and visual style of Hexed was eventually applied to trance music, birthing a microgenre known as hex trance or sex trance, the latter term coined semi-jokingly by the EDM artist Purity Filter. Dismiss Yourself started putting out hex trance albums and mixes as well from artists like Sienna Sleep, Exodia, and Beans Club. So basically, we looped back around into making classic Nightcore again. I don't think it's all that surprising that we're seeing traces of Nightcore in so many areas of both mainstream and underground music recently. Our culture has been having a big 2000s and early 2010s nostalgia moment for the past several years now, and a lot of the artists pioneering these genres are young, having grown up on the internet during this era. And now we have to talk about the TikTok of it all. Even if you don't use the app yourself, I'm sure you are aware that music plays a big role on there. Clips of songs are often added to videos, and the app has made countless songs go viral and even launched some artists' careers. This is likely a result of its merger with Musical.ly, the short-lived app meant for making dance and lip-sync videos, in 2018. In the early 2020s, it became trendy to speed up whatever song clip you were using in your video. By 2022, the sped up sounds tag had over 8 billion views. People were making accounts dedicated to posting sped up versions of popular songs for other people to use in their videos. The artists behind these songs, or more accurately their record labels, began taking notice. Pretty soon, the sped up versions of the songs started appearing on streaming services, not uploaded by some random bootleg account, but by the official artist accounts. Yet more artists began preemptively releasing sped up versions of their new music in the hopes of it going viral on TikTok. Even decades-old songs that had found new life on TikTok were re-released as sped up remixes. And some of the supposed bootleg accounts that had been uploading these remixes turned out to be run by big record labels. Spotify has a sped up songs playlist that has over 1 million saves. This is very interesting to me because these sped up versions of songs are essentially the same thing as Nightcore, but back when Nightcore was at its peak, artists were not re-releasing their songs as Nightcore versions, with the exception of Carmel Johnson, I guess. Nightcore was never taken this seriously by the mainstream music industry, and was treated as a joke by most people outside its core fanbase. So what changed? Danny L. Harl said about this phenomenon, quote, "The original Nightcore scene was a weirdo place for sure, but TikTok flattens any cultural baggage. It becomes a tool. TikTok has provided context for lots of sounds that are strange or disorienting because they grab your attention, end quote. I definitely agree with this. A lot of really niche music ends up going viral on TikTok, including many songs from the Nightcore-influenced microgenres we just looked at. I think sped-up music in particular does well on TikTok because it packs more lyrical and emotional information into the typically short time frame of a TikTok video. It reflects the shortened attention spans that come with scrolling endless algorithmically tailored short-form content. Major record labels are definitely looking to social media to see what's trendy more now than they were 10 to 15 years ago. And they likely see sped-up remixes as a marketing opportunity to boost the popularity of certain songs or artists. It can be annoying for those of us who were tapped into Nightcore the first time around to see it being gentrified, but it seems all this has actually led to a renewed interest in, like, OG Nightcore. It's not called Speed Up or TikTok version, it's called Nightcore, and you put an anime girl on the thumbnail, has become a popular copy pasta that can often be found in the comment sections of old Nightcore videos from people revisiting the songs they remember from their childhoods. Lately, I've also been seeing a lot of nostalgic Nightcore mixes in my recommendations. I think it's great to see people keeping the spirit of Nightcore alive, and I for one am here for a 2020s Nightcore revival. What was your most listened to Nightcore song back in the day? Do you listen to Jane Remover? Have you listened to Jane Remover? Will you listen to Jane Remover? When will you listen to Jane Remover? And let me know if there are any other internet-based music scenes you'd like me to cover in a video. I know I'd definitely love to make an entire video dedicated to Vaporwave. Kind of feels like the yin to Nightcore's yang. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, liking, subscribing, sharing, or becoming a channel member are all very much appreciated. I'll catch y'all in the next one.